My own children sold their mother out like an old piece of furniture, while I pretended to sleep, hearing every poisonous word spilling from their mouths. When the old woman dies in the nursing home, we split everything 50-50, Ryan whispered to Vanessa while counting the bills he had just pulled from my safe. I hope it won't take long. I'm tired of pretending to love her, my daughter-in-law answered the viper, I once welcomed into my home like a daughter. Sheila, 66 years old, stood pressed behind the bedroom door, peeking through a sliver. In the living room, Ryan whispered to Vanessa about planning to send their mother to her death the way people plan a vacation. Brenda held my will, the one I thought I had hidden so well. Look, bro. It says here she's leaving everything for us to split evenly. Good thing she never found out we already read it. The stench of betrayal thickened the house, mingling with Vanessa's cheap perfume and the cigarette smoke Ryan blew onto my green velvet sofa. The sofa I bought when they were little, and I still believed in family. The crystal lamp my mother left me cast light over their demon-like faces as they butchered my life like slaughterhouse men. The nursing home in Florida has been paid 6 months in advance, Brenda reported, glancing at her phone. By the time the money runs out, she'll be so far gone she won't know anything. All three burst out laughing like a pack of starving hyenas. I felt something die inside my chest, not my heart, but my faith in humanity. Vanessa pulled my pearl necklace from the jewelry box, the one that belonged to my grandmother, and put it on in front of the mirror as if it had always been hers. This goes perfectly with the dress I'm wearing to my sister's wedding, she murmured, stroking each pearl that held more history than her entire family combined. Ryan clapped ridiculously. You look gorgeous, babe, that necklace has. Always suited you better than the old hag. The words old hag came out of my own son's mouth like a spit. That boy, the one I nursed with my own milk, stayed up all night with when he had pneumonia, and the doctor said he might die now, called his mother trash, like something to be thrown away. I trembled with rage as I watched Brenda open my photo albums and toss them one by one into the trash. 40 years of memories, first smiles, first steps, happy birthdays, all hurled into the bin as if they had never existed. Why would she need photos where she's going? She said, so cruel it chilled my blood. Ryan opened my laptop and scrolled through my bank accounts with a smile that made me sick. Look at this. The old woman has more money than we thought. We can buy that beach condo in Florida that Vanessa wants. My daughter-in-law jumped up like a spoiled child. Yes. And we can finally take that big trip to Europe. Europe with my money, the condo with my labor, luxuries with my sacrifices, all paid for with the blood of a woman who worked herself to the bone to give them a better life, who forgot herself so they could have everything. And this was how they repaid me, plotting my exile while spending my inheritance before I even closed my eyes. The living room clock showed 11 p.m. When Vanessa asked, "What if the old woman resists?" Ryan laughed with a cruelty that made me shudder. It's all taken care of. Dr. Morris will help. We'll say she has dementia and can't take care of herself. The paperwork is ready. Morris, my trusted doctor, the man who had cared for my health for 15 years, was in on it too. The one I entrusted with my pain, my fears, my medical secrets, betrayed me for a stack of cash. My own doctor would sign off that I was out of my mind to legalize my deportation to a home. That night I couldn't close my eyes. I lay in the bed where I had cried over my husband's death, where I had dreamed of holding my grandchildren, where I planned to grow old with dignity, now turned into a coffin, waiting to bury me alive. Morning came like a sentence. I woke with the bitter taste of betrayal still clinging to my throat, pretending I had slept well when I had spent the whole night planning how to escape the trap my own children had set. The smell of fresh coffee rose from the kitchen, the same coffee I had brewed for them for decades, and today they brewed it to celebrate my living funeral. Brenda knocked on my door with those knuckles that once comforted me, now sounding like hammer blows. "Good morning, Mom. Did you sleep well?" Her voice, syrup sweet with poison, made me nauseous. I stood up slowly, performing the frailty they wanted to see, while inside I boiled with contained fury. I gripped the handrail like a helpless old woman. Every step was calculated so they wouldn't suspect I had uncovered their vile plan. The living room looked exactly the same as last night, but in daylight everything felt foreign. My furniture, my memories, my whole life suddenly felt like they no longer belonged to me. Ryan sat sprawled in my favorite armchair, calmly reading the paper like a man who had already won the war. He wore the blue shirt I gave him for Father's Day. Now it looked like a mask of a dutiful son. "Good morning, Mom," he said without lifting his eyes from the paper. As if today were just another day, not the day they would banish me forever. Vanessa was in the kitchen setting breakfast on my Chinese porcelain, the set I only used for special occasions. Ironic that my last breakfast at home would be served on the dishes of celebration. "I made your favorite toast, dear mother-in-law," she said with that fake smile I now recognized as pure acting. I sat at the table that had been with me for 30 years. So many birthdays, so many tears, and now it would witness my last meal as a free woman. The bread tasted like cardboard, the orange juice bitter. Everything had lost its flavor since I learned my children's true faces. "Mom, we have a surprise for you," Brenda chirped in the childish tone she used whenever she'd done something wrong. She pulled a gold envelope from her purse, the kind used for fancy invitations. "We're giving you a trip to a beautiful place with people your age. You'll be so comfortable." Inside were the documents of a sentence disguised as a gift. Plane tickets, nursing home information, medical authorizations, everything slick and ready to turn a crime into filial piety. The photos showed perfect gardens and bright rooms, but to me it was a gilded prison. "I'm not going anywhere," I said as firmly as I could. "I'm staying in my home." Ryan set the paper down with a thud that made the cups rattle. "You can't live alone anymore, Mom. Yesterday you forgot to turn off the gas. You could have blown up the house." A lie. I had never forgotten anything, but that would be their excuse to the world. Vanessa took my hands with that practiced tenderness perfected over years of deceit. "Sheila, it's for your own good. There you'll have nurses around the clock, activities, home-cooked meals, everything you need at your age." At your age, as if 66 were synonymous with senility. "Also," Brenda added, eyes still glued to her phone, "we already talked to Dr. Morris. He agrees you need constant medical supervision." The name Morris came out like another knife. The doctor who knew every ache, every worry betrayed for money. Ryan stood, pacing like a caged lion. "The plane leaves this afternoon, Mom. Everything's set. There's no turning back." This afternoon meaning I had only a few hours of freedom left before being escorted like a criminal to a strange place to die slowly in oblivion. "What if I don't want to go?" I asked, knowing the answer but needing to hear it from their own mouths. The three looked at each other, that look of criminals who had rehearsed every move. "It's not optional, Mom," Brenda replied, cold to the bone. "We've signed all the legal papers. We're your guardians now." Guardians my children turned into my owners, exploiting my trust, unconditional love, and blind faith in family to shackle me with the law. The masterstroke of a perfect con. Vanessa went upstairs to help me pack, really to make sure I didn't take anything valuable. She rifled through every drawer, every corner, every hiding place for documents or jewelry. "Sheila, you don't need this much," she said as she split my life into two piles, what I could take and what would stay for them. Family photos went straight into the discard pile. "They have tons of activities there. You'll be busy non-stop, no time for nostalgia," she lectured, as she tossed into the trash my wedding photo, the photo of the day Ryan was born, the photo of Brenda's first day of school, 40 years of family history deleted like computer spam. The scent of my home faded, overrun by Vanessa's harsh perfume and the disinfectant they used to scrub away every trace of my presence. They were erasing me from the map before I even left, setting the stage for a life without Sheila. The worst humiliation came with a knock at the door. "Doctor." Morris appeared with a black bag and the smile that used to calm me. "Dear Sheila, how are you doing?" he asked in a honeyed voice I now recognized as pure deceit. He had come to examine me and sign the paper certifying my supposed dementia, the document that would legalize my abduction. "Sit here, Sheila." He pointed to the sofa where I had welcomed guests for years. Now I was the unwelcome guest in my own living room. Morris opened his bag with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times, taking out medical instruments that gleamed under the light like a butcher's knives. Ryan sat close, taking my arm with a counterfeit tenderness that made me gag. "Calm down, Mom. The doctor just wanted to check if I was fit for the trip," a pretty word to disguise a forced exile. Vanessa held up her phone, recording everything, creating evidence that she cared about me. "Sheila, do you remember what you ate this morning?" "Doctor." Morris asked as he jotted my answers into his notebook. Every question was a trap, every answer another strand in the legal noose. What day is it today? Do you remember the president's name? Questions designed to confuse me, to make me doubt my own sanity. Brenda came closer, fake tears streaming. Doctor, yesterday Mom forgot to turn off the stove. We're really worried. Lie after lie. Constructing a reality where I was a senile old woman who needed to be sent away for her own good. Vanessa piled on, acting like she was up for an award. Last night we saw Mom wandering around the house in her pajamas saying there were intruders. We think she's having hallucinations. Hallucinations, how ironic, when the only thieves in this house were the three of them, stealing my dignity in broad daylight. Morris nodded with the wisdom of someone who had decided everything before the exam even began. At this age, it's normal, Sheila. The brain starts to deteriorate and needs constant supervision. My brain was perfectly clear enough to spot their scheme and plan my payback. But doctor, I forced my voice to tremble, I feel fine in my own home. I don't want to go anywhere. My words bounced off the walls like a cry into the void. No one heard me. No one believed me. No one stood by me. It was like a trial where all the judges had already delivered the verdict. Ryan handed Morris a stack of papers pulled from his briefcase. Powers of attorney, medical consents, things that turned me into a legal, incapacitated person. We've taken care of everything. Doctor, we just need your signature to make it official. The signature that would bury me alive, turning me into a ghost in my own life. Sheila, this is for your own good, Morris said, signing each page with a gold pen that gleamed like blood-stained gold. In Florida, you'll be better cared for, with friends, activities, everything a person your age needs. A person my age, as if 66 were a terminal illness. Vanessa draped on me the black coat I bought for my husband's funeral, now worn for the social funeral of my own life. You look lovely, Sheila, she lied, fastening each button like dressing a small child. You'll make lots of new friends. A taxi waited in the driveway, engine humming like a hearse ready to take me to my final stop. Ryan carried a small suitcase just enough for the bare essentials while they kept an entire house full of keepsakes saved over decades. Brenda hugged me at the threshold, and for a brief moment I almost felt a trace of love in that embrace. We'll come visit soon, Mom, she whispered, but the words rang hollow like a politician's promise. Take care, I said, looking at them one last time standing in the doorway of my own home, knowing this might be the last time I ever saw them. Ryan raised his hand in a blessing-like farewell, more benediction than a loving son's goodbye. The taxi rolled away from the street where I had lived my entire adult life, raised my children, and dreamed of growing old in family warmth. The street turned into a mental photograph I would be forced to keep for the rest of my life. Vanessa was already in the garden, watering the plants as if she were the new owner. Ryan went back inside probably to start planning the sale of my furniture. Brenda waved until the house disappeared from sight, faking sadness to the last second. On the way to the airport, the driver tried to chat. Vacation, ma'am? He looked at me in the rearview mirror. Something like that, I replied. How could I explain to a stranger that my own children had sold off their mother like old livestock, that I was heading to an exile wrapped as a gift? At the airport, Ryan handed over my travel documents with the attitude of a travel agent. Everything's in order, Mom. When you arrive, someone from the nursing home will be waiting for you. Someone from the home. I didn't know anyone's name, and I no longer cared. The plane took off, carrying my last scraps of hope into the gray clouds. A few hours of flying to the place my children had chosen for their mother's lonely death. A few hours to process the truth. The family I had given my whole life to had betrayed me in the cruelest way. The flight attendant smiled with professional kindness. I pretended to read a magazine, but the words blurred through the tears I refused to shed. Landing in Tampa, Florida's humid heat slapped me in the face, a slap of reality. A man in a white uniform stood waiting with a sign reading, Sheila Miller Sunset Palms Care Residence. Welcome to Florida, miss. Sheila, he said, with the mechanical politeness of someone used to working with disposable elders. The ride to the facility was a tour through my new reality. Unfamiliar streets, English I knew but in strange accents, faces that would never know or remember me. Florida was beautiful, but to me it was a gilded prison where I would serve a sentence of abandonment. Sunset Palms rose like a white marble building, gardens perfectly trimmed, windows glittering in the afternoon sunday. Just like the brochure I'd seen, beautiful outside, cold inside. The director, about 50, wore a service smile and welcomed me in the lobby like a guest at a luxury hotel. "Miss Sheila, we're honored to care for you," she said while briskly checking my paperwork, as if processing human cargo. "Your family told us a lot about you. You'll be very uncomfortable here. We have activities, physical therapy, entertainment, everything a person in your situation needs. In your situation, as if being abandoned by one's children were a medical diagnosis." I was assigned room 204, small but clean, overlooking the garden where I would spend my remaining years watching flowers others had planted, while my own children sold off the ones I had tended for decades. The first night at Sunset Palms was the longest of my life. The bed was soft, the food decent, the staff kind, but none of it filled the hole in my chest. Some elders played cards in the common room, others watched TV. Some painted landscapes. Everyone pretending being there was a choice, not a sentence. My roommate, Miss Maria, 80 years old, had been there 3 years. "It hurts at first," she said before bedtime. "Then you get used to it. Kids have their own lives. Being a mother, there comes an expiration date." Her resignation made me sadder than angry, as if motherhood came with a shelf life. In the first weeks, I called Ryan and Brenda, but they were always busy. "Mom, we're swamped. We'll call next week. Can't talk now." I gradually understood. My exile included a social death being erased from their lives until I became a ghost of the past. Letters I sent came back unopened. Emails bounced as if my address had been blocked. It was as if Sheila Miller had died the day I boarded that plane, as if the woman who raised, taught, and loved them unconditionally had never existed. One afternoon, walking in the garden, I heard a nurse on the phone talking about a resident whose family had sold her house without telling her. "Happens all the time," she said with the flat tone of someone who's seen too much. "They drop them off here, then forget." Her words chilled me because she was talking about me. That night, I did what I should have done on day one. I called my lawyer in Portland. Patricia Harper, my legal counsel for 15 years, a principled woman who knew every asset, investment, and important document I had. If anyone could help me, it was her. "Sheila, where are you?" was the first thing she asked when she heard my voice. "Your 2 children came to my office saying you died of a heart attack in Florida. They even brought a fake death certificate." The world collapsed. My own children had killed their mother on paper to speed up the inheritance. "Patricia, I'm alive and I need your help," I said, my voice breaking. I told her everything: the deceit, the nursing home, the forged papers, the sale of my house, the entire diabolical plan executed like a military operation. Every word sounded like a horror movie, but it was my reality. "This is extremely serious," Patricia said. "If they filed a fake death certificate, that's document fraud. But you need to return to Oregon so we can file suit, freeze assets, and restore your legal identity." "How can I leave here when, on paper, I'm incapacitated?" I asked, despair rising in my throat. "Let me handle it," Patricia replied, with the decisiveness I've always admired. "I'll send a legal representative to Florida. This won't be left alone." In the days that followed, I pretended to adjust, smiling in group activities, attending therapy, eating in the common dining room while my mind ran full speed on an escape plan and reclaiming everything. The next week, Patricia's representative arrived, a Latino-American attorney named Richard Mendoza. He reviewed all my documents and confirmed exactly what we already knew. My admission to the nursing home had been based on forged paperwork and perjured statements. "Miss Sheila, you are here illegally. This is kidnapping disguised as medical care," Attorney Richard Mendoza said after 2 weeks of playing detective, gathering enough evidence of the con my children had orchestrated with professional precision. Every day at the facility, I pretended to be the resigned old woman they expected, but inside I boiled and mapped every step of my counterattack. "Sheila, it's worse than we thought," Richard whispered during a secret meeting in the Sunset Palms garden. "Ryan and Brenda didn't just fake your death. They sold the house, emptied your accounts, and are living like millionaires on your money." Each word was another knife twisting into a heart already in pieces. Every night, attorney Patricia Harper called to coordinate the rescue. "You must return without them finding out. If they learn you're alive, they'll hide the evidence, and we won't get anything back." It was a race against time, every second counting. My plan began when I discovered there was a computer for residents to use at the facility. At night, when everyone slept, I slipped down to check online banking. What I saw confirmed the worst. A lifetime of savings had disappeared, transferred to accounts I didn't recognize. Ryan opened accounts under the names of shell companies to launder my money. Vanessa bought the beach condo of her dreams with my money. Brenda paid private school tuition for her children with the funds I had set aside for my own medical expenses. A systematic betrayal, planned down to the last detail. The hardest shock hit when I looked at Vanessa's social media, photos of my house in Portland gutted and rebuilt, brand new furnishings all purchased with my money. In one photo, she clinked champagne glasses in the garden, celebrating a new chapter. Her friends praised her for being free of a toxic mother-in-law. Brenda was even crueler. She posted a crying video saying, "Mom with dementia has passed away," thanking the community for sharing her pain. Hundreds of people offered condolences for my fabricated mental illness. That night I didn't sleep. Seeing my own children turn their mother's destruction into content for clicks sparked a fury I'd never known. But the fury quickly crystallized into a cold resolve, a counterplan as perfect as their con. The following week, Richard brought good news. Patricia had filed a criminal complaint for fraud, forgery, and misappropriation. She also obtained a court order to freeze every account in my name. The wheels of justice began to turn slow but relentless. "But Sheila," Patricia said sternly, "you need to return soon. With you present, the investigation will move faster, and you'll testify." Returning meant facing my children, looking them in the eyes, pretending surprise when the dead woman walked in. Leaving the facility was easier than I thought. Richard arranged all the legal papers, proving the admission was fraudulent. The director of Sunset Palms apologized profusely. "We trusted files that looked very legitimate. We're terribly sorry this has never happened here." The flight back to Oregon was nothing like the outbound one. I was no longer the old woman banished by her children, but a 66-year-old woman preparing the sweetest counterstrike of her life. Every mile flown was a mile closer to justice. Patricia met me at Portland International with a radiant smile, like greeting family returning from war. "Sheila, you're glowing, ready to deliver the biggest shock of their lives." On the drive downtown, Patricia updated me on everything they had uncovered. Ryan bought a luxury car. Vanessa rebuilt her face at the most expensive clinic. Brenda remodeled her entire house, all with my money. But now they can't touch a single cent. And, "Do they know you're back yet?" I asked, heart pounding. "No. On paper, you're still dead. Next week they'll witness a resurrection miracle in court." Patricia placed me in a hotel near the courthouse so I could prepare for the final showdown without tipping them off. These past months I've gathered enough evidence, audio recordings, screenshots, bank statements, everything to indict. That night, alone, before the mirror, I saw a different woman, tougher, clear-eyed, no longer the naive Sheila who blindly believed in family. "Tomorrow we launch the counteroffensive," I told myself and turned off the light. For the first time in months, I slept like a baby because justice was on my side, and my ungrateful children were about to pay the highest price of their lives. The morning of the confrontation arrived like a dawn of justice. Patricia laid out the strategy like a general before a decisive battle. "Today they'll realize they killed the golden goose, but the goose came back to life and is furious," she said, reviewing the files one last time. The plan was perfect. Ryan and Brenda were invited to a title and escrow conference room to sign off on the inheritance documents of their deceased mother. They believed they would receive deeds to additional properties newly discovered. "Are you ready?" Patricia asked as we walked in. My heart pounded like a war drum, but my mind was cold as steel. I've waited months for this day. We arrived early and positioned ourselves. I hid in the adjacent office, door slightly ajar, listening to every word, waiting for the moment to step out and resurrect. Patricia set a recorder and wired cameras to capture everything. At exactly 10 o'clock, familiar voices sounded in the hallway. Ryan spoke with the swagger of someone squandering other people's money. Hope this is the last signature. I'm sick of paperwork, his expensive leather shoes clicking on the marble floor. Brenda laughed with the practiced fake laugh she used to mask her malice. At least we're almost done. Mom would be proud of how neatly we handled everything. Proud, the word made me nauseous. I'd only be proud to see them rot in prison for theft and for killing their mother. In spirit. Vanessa walked in griping about traffic, carrying a designer bag worth more than a working family's monthly pay. How much longer? I've got a spa appointment at 12. The spa, of course, also on my dime. Patricia greeted them with a professional smile, hiding her true intent. Good morning, Miller family. Thank you for being punctual. We have a few important matters to finalize regarding Miss Sheila's estate. More matters? Ryan snapped. I thought we were done with all the legal formalities. His voice sounded annoyed, as if bureaucracy were just a pebble in his perfect robbery plan. Actually, Patricia said calmly, organizing the papers, a few irregularities have arisen that we need to clarify before the final transfer. The word irregularities hovered in the air like a mine ready to explode. Brenda leaned forward with feigned innocent curiosity. What kind of irregularities? We've been completely transparent. Transparent as mud, I thought from my hiding place. We've received information indicating that the initially filed death certificate has several inconsistencies, Patricia said with the composure of a hunter closing in on prey. The room thickened. I heard Ryan shift in his chair, Vanessa hold her breath for a beat, Brenda stalling for time. Inconsistent. What do you mean? Ryan tried to sound steady, but his voice still shook. That certificate was issued by a hospital in Florida, where Mom died. Patricia opened the thick file she had prepared for weeks. Yes, the hospital issued a death certificate, but the deceased was named Sheila Miller Simons, not Sheila Miller like your mother. And the accompanying medical record number belongs to a completely different patient at Tampa General. Papers fluttered to the floor. Someone had lost control of their documents, probably Brenda, the most faint-hearted whenever a brightly complicated lie had to be upheld. It must be a clerical error, Vanessa squeaked, her voice going high with fear. Hospitals make mistakes all the time, especially with out-of-state patients. Every word they spoke only buried them deeper in their own legal grave. What a coincidence, Patricia smiled. I couldn't see it, but I heard it in her voice. Because we also contacted Sunset Palms in Florida, where your mother was placed. The room fell silent again, this time the silence of terror as the trap the criminals had built was snapping shut. I pictured pale faces, sweaty hands, brains scrambling for an exit. So, what did they say? Brenda asked, her voice so small I barely heard it from my hiding place. The voice of a child who knows she's been caught doing something very bad. They said something very interesting, Patricia drawled, savoring each word. That Miss Sheila Miller was discharged 3 weeks ago and returned to Oregon very much alive, very lucid and furious about being admitted on forged paperwork. A cacophony erupted like a symphony of panic. Chairs clattering over, strangled cries, footsteps lunging for the door. But Patricia had locked it. My beloved children were trapped in the maze of their own making. Impossible, Ryan shouted, his voice shattering like glass under pressure. My mother is dead. We have the death certificate. We paid for the funeral. Each sentence was yet another confession. Brenda began to hyperventilate the broken, hitching sound just like when she was a child and got caught lying. Patricia, there must be a mistake. Mom died of a heart attack in Florida. We followed the proper procedures. There were doctors, there were forms. Procedures? Patricia said icily, filling me with pride. Do you mean the procedure where you forged your mother's signature on notarized documents, or the procedure where you bribed a doctor to certify a non-existent dementia? Vanessa tried to keep her composure, but her voice shook like a leaf in a storm. We acted in good faith. Sheila was sick, confused, unable to care for herself. Everything we did was for her. For me. A brazen rationalization, wrapping greed in the language of filial love. My turn had come. The moment I had dreamed of through those cold nights in the nursing home. I rose with the dignity of a queen returning to reclaim her stolen throne. I opened the side office door and stepped into the conference room like a ghost come back to collect from the living. The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear my own heartbeat and the sound of 3 souls dropping straight into hell. Ryan was the first to see me. His face froze into a mask of pure horror. The blood drained from his face as if he'd seen death itself. Mom, he stammered, like a voice from beyond. But you're dead. I smiled, the smile I had saved for months. No, Ryan. I'm very alive, very lucid, and extremely angry. My voice sounded different, deeper, stronger, the voice of a woman who had come back to set things right. Brenda actually fainted, collapsed like a sack. Vanessa caught her with trembling hands, her eyes fixed on me as if I were an apparition. Sheila, dear mother, Vanessa stammered, trying to reassemble the fake smile she had practiced for years. So glad to see you. We thought. She couldn't finish the lie with living proof standing right in front of her. You thought I was dead, or you were waiting for me to die? I circled the table slowly, like a predator. Ryan tried to stand, but his legs buckled. Mom, let us explain. There was a misunderstanding, mixed up paperwork. His voice was like a child begging forgiveness after breaking something precious. A misunderstanding? I laughed. A laugh rising from the bottom of my soul, not joy, but justice. Having Dr. Morris sign off that I lost my mind was a misunderstanding? Draining my accounts was a misunderstanding? Selling my house was a misunderstanding? Patricia opened another file and spread photos across the table. Screenshots of social media, receipts for luxury purchases, celebration videos, undeniable proof they had partied on my fake death. Look at this one. Patricia pointed to a photo of Vanessa clinking champagne glasses. Vanessa celebrating a new life on the very day you locked your mother in Sunset Palms. Also a misunderstanding, right? Brenda had come to, but looked dazed, her eyes flicking between my face and the photos, trying to stitch together 2 incompatible realities. Mom, we thought this was best for you. The home is beautiful, the care is good. Best for me? I exploded, the rage of months burst open. Best for me is to let me wither away in a strange place while you burn through the money I saved all my life? Best for me is forging a death certificate to speed up the inheritance? Ryan threw his last desperate card. Mom, we can fix this. I'll give back the house, the money, everything. It was just a moment of poor judgment. His voice crumbled like a house of cards. Give back? I laughed bitterly. Can you give back the months of humiliation? The nights I cried thinking my own children had abandoned me? Can you give back my faith in family? Patricia stepped forward, laying down the thickest file. Here is the criminal complaint we've filed. Document fraud, misappropriation, forgery of public records, and kidnapping. Each charge carries a minimum of several years in prison. The groan from Ryan's throat sounded like a wounded animal. Vanessa began to cry, not out of remorse but self-pity. Brenda dropped to her knees, tears soaking the marble floor. Mom, please forgive us. We're family after all. Don't destroy us. Family? I? Repeated, as if releasing poison. Family takes care of each other, protects each other, loves unconditionally. You threw your mother away like trash. Ryan opened his arms to hug me as if one embrace could erase months of betrayal. Mom, let's start over. We're your blood. Blood? I looked at him with a mix of sorrow and contempt. That very blood drained mine without anesthesia. Patricia spread the inventory of what they'd taken. The house sold for about $2 million, accounts emptied of more than $800,000. Jewelry sold off. Antique furniture liquidated. Even my car sold nearly $3 million, burned through in 6 months. Check this line. Patricia tapped a detailed entry. $50,000 in a single night at a Las Vegas casino. $50,000 Sheila saved through 18-hour workdays. Vanessa slipped into the victim costume. Sheila, I only followed my husband. A wife has to support her husband. I never meant to hurt you. Support? I shot a look that could melt steel. Support is filming yourself crying over my supposed dementia while pouring my money into plastic surgeries? Posting that you freed yourself from a toxic mother-in-law? Vanessa's face went completely pale when she realized we had seen everything. Those posts, I was confused, devastated. I didn't know how to handle it. Confused was me lost in that facility, asking what I had done to deserve such punishment. Confused was me when letters I sent came back unopened. Ryan gambled on one last emotional ploy. Think of the grandkids, Mom. They love you. How will they grow up knowing their grandmother put their parents in prison? The grandkids? My voice caught. You're the ones who told them I was dead. They cried at my fake funeral while you pretended to be grieving. Who will tell them their grandmother came back to life, or that their parents are liars? Patricia delivered the coup de grace. One more thing Sheila needs to know. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. They planned your placement for at least 6 months. We have emails among the 3 of them, from January, discussing how to divide your assets. Silence fell heavy as a coffin lid. 6 months they wrote the script, cast the roles, set the curtain time, and thought I would never rise again. But I, Sheila Miller, 66 years old, was standing here, alive, clear-minded, and ready to bring the curtain down on justice. They had planned my exile for half a year, smiling and hugging while secretly plotting to destroy their own mother. Every hug, every "I love you, Mom," every smile was a performance to prepare for burying me alive. 6 months, I repeated, feeling something finally snap in my heart. 6 months of fake affection while calculating how to get rid of me. 6 months of Judas kisses on my cheek, the most perfect, cruel, calculated betrayal. Brenda still tried one last lie. Mom, the emails were misunderstood. We only wanted to ensure your future, find the most comfortable place for you. Even she didn't believe her own words. Patricia read an email aloud. I've checked 3 nursing homes. The one in Florida is perfect because she doesn't know anyone there and will be completely isolated. I estimate that in 2 years at most we're free. The email was signed by Ryan, sent to Brenda, CC to Vanessa. 2 years at most, I repeated like reading a sentence. They calculated that within 2 years I would be dead from sorrow and abandonment. A precise mathematics to clock the agony of their own mother. My voice sounded hollow, as if from a grave. Sheila. Patricia put her hand on my arm, the tenderness my own children had denied me. Do you want to proceed with criminal charges, or settle this civilly? It was time to choose between legal justice and personal revenge. I looked at my 3 executioners trembling before me, waiting for my maternal love to outweigh my thirst for justice. For 66 years I had been Sheila the mother, Sheila the protector, Sheila who forgives. But that Sheila died in the nursing home. Proceed with all charges, I said clearly, even my own voice surprised by the resolve. I want them to pay for everything, every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of humiliation. It was my full resurrection from victim to the one who claims justice. 6 months after that day at the notary's, I wake each morning in my new house on the Oregon coast, a home I bought with the money recovered from my treacherous children. The sound of waves breaking against the rocks is the only music I need for my morning coffee, poured into porcelain. I chose myself, no longer trying to please anyone but me. Justice moves slowly, but without mercy. Ryan was sentenced to 8 years in prison for aggravated fraud and document forgery. Vanessa received 6 years as an accomplice, and her beach condo was seized for restitution. Brenda, considered less culpable, received 5 years probation and community service at a nursing home. How poetic that she now has to care for abandoned elders every day. I recovered every cent plus interest and penalties ordered by the judge. Nearly $3.5 million returned to my accounts. But more important than the money was getting my dignity back. Patricia became not only my lawyer but my closest friend, the sister I never had, whom fate gifted me in my golden years. My new will is a legal work of art. All my assets will be divided among 5 charities that help seniors abandoned by their families. Each of my children will receive exactly $1 as a reminder of the bitter taste of betrayal, spelled out in a special clause, Patricia drafted, with a mischievous smile. For months, pleas for mercy poured in from prison, through lawyers, then through mutual acquaintances trying to mediate. They all ended up in the same place, the fireplace where I burn logs each night as I read books I never had time for before, back when I was busy being the perfect mother. The fire devours their words the way they devoured my love. The hardest part was the grandchildren. The other grandparents explained the truth gradually, and now the children understand. Grandma Sheila isn't dead, but she's also no longer available to those who betrayed her. A harsh but necessary lesson about consequences within a family. I hope one day they understand. I protected their ethical future more than their momentary comfort. My days are simple and complete. I rise with the sun. Water, a garden that grows free, no longer staged to impress guests. I read for hours on a hammock under the tree I planted the day I moved in. At dusk, I paint watercolor seascapes, something I always wanted to do but never had time for, busy being the perfect mother to imperfect children. Neighbors know me as Miss Sheila, the woman who moved from the city, carrying a story no one fully knows, but everyone respects. I greet kindly, help when needed, but guard my privacy like a treasure, something I learned to value after decades of family intrusion. Dr. Morris the traitor lost his medical license and faces charges for falsifying medical records. His clinic closed, patients left, now he sells health insurance. Life has its own way of delivering justice beyond the courts. Each evening, as the sky turns orange and pink, I sit on my porch with a glass of red wine and think about the woman I was and the woman I've become. The first lived for others, sacrificing everything for family, believing motherhood was the same as martyrdom. The second lives for herself, loves without erasing herself, and understands that respect is born from clear boundaries. I do not nurse hatred. Hatred is poison you drink, hoping others will die. I choose to live fully, rather than die slowly in bitterness. I feel justice. I feel peace. I feel freedom. People sometimes ask, "Do you miss your children?" The answer is complicated. I miss the children they used to be, not the adults they have become. I miss my illusions about them, not the reality they revealed. It's like missing a book with a terrible ending. You miss the hope, not the disappointment. My new will includes a letter to be opened only when I die a natural death. In it, I wrote, "I choose to die with dignity rather than live among lies. I choose honest solitude over fake companionship. Sometimes the purest love is the love that knows when to leave when it is no longer valued." This morning, while I was writing these lines in my journal, the mailman brought a certified envelope from Ryan, sent from prison. Another plea for forgiveness. I didn't open it. I walked straight to the blazing fireplace. The letter turned to ash in seconds, drifting up the chimney into the blue sky. I sat in my favorite armchair, chosen for comfort, not to impress guests, and opened my poetry book to the dog-eared page. I read aloud to myself because my voice deserves to be heard, even if only by my own ears. Outside, seagulls fly free over the endless ocean. I smile because I finally understand that the true legacy I can leave is not money or property, but the example of a woman who learned to value herself before it was too late. Sea wind slips through the open window, carrying away the last trace of the old Sheila and blessing the Sheila of today. I don't need forgiveness from those who betrayed me, because I have forgiven myself for taking so long to learn how to love myself. This is my true resurrection, not returning to the life I had, but being born into the life I deserve. When the final door closes, I, and perhaps you, too understand that love in a family is not a blank check. It needs boundaries so it won't be exploited. It needs respect so it won't become blind self-sacrifice. Sheila chose to stand up and reclaim her dignity, and she also reminds us that forgiveness only has meaning when it walks alongside justice. Sometimes the greatest love is daring to say enough to protect yourself. And what about you? If you were in Sheila's place, would you choose forgiveness or justice or a path in between? What boundaries have you set to keep your heart safe? Share your story or perspective in the comments. Perhaps your experience will become a light for someone still struggling in the dark. If stories about family, dignity, and healing speak to you, come along with us for the next chapters so each week we can sit together, listen, reflect, and grow side by side. See you in the next story.